Hi again, Panther fans, and welcome to the Panther Insider Podcast driven by Ford. This is Dave Cohen, the radio voice of the Panthers. Once again, great to have you back as we talk Georgia State athletics. And on this latest show, getting close to kickoff, we're talking Georgia State football with the Panther offensive and defensive coordinators Trent McKnight and Chad Staggs. Fall practice continues. Georgia State will open the season on Thursday night, August 31, when they host the Rams of Rhode Island here at Center Park Stadium. Season tickets available by calling the ticket office at 404-413-4020 or visit online at georgiastatesports.com. Before we get to our guest this week in the podcast, as always, thanks to all the Panther fans who have subscribed, rated, and reviewed our first 118 shows. If you've missed any of our previous Panther Insider podcasts, they're all available on our Apple Archives page. You can access that online at georgiastatesports.com. Once again, we're talking college football on this latest Panther Insider podcast. So let's first welcome offensive coordinator Trent McKnight to the Panther radio microphones. And you and I were talking earlier that a year ago you were kind of thrust into the offensive coordinator position role late. This time around, you've had the entire offseason and, for lack of a better term, really able to hit the ground running and maybe be, under your terms, a little bit more Trent McKnight prepared for this coming season.
Yeah, I think every experience you have in life you learn, and I think my goal has always been to be an offense coordinator, and that's what you work towards, but until you're actually in that seat, you learn a lot. And we kept a lot of things the same last year, and we're still doing a lot of those same things right now. But I think overall, kind of like we talked about the other day, now we've got a staff where we've all been together. We've sat through and we've watched a lot of these plays. Hey, what can we do to make these plays a little bit better, and not necessarily change what we're doing, but how can we enhance those things? So I think for all of us, a year together, we've got a lot of continuity on our offensive staff. So I think that's been one of the best things for us on offense going into year two here.
Well, coming off the season a year ago, when you guys go into those first off-season meetings, on the offensive side, what were some of the topics of discussion, the hot-button issues that you guys wanted to address in all areas coming into this coming year?
I think it goes back to what I was saying, just how can we enhance it? How can we make it a little bit better? We're not changing who we are or what we do, because we've had a lot of success here on offense. So there were not any major changes, but it's thinking about how can we enhance these things, and how can we be a little bit better with our technique? How can we be a little better with our fundamentals? How can we play a little bit harder? How can we coach effort a little bit better? How can we make this read a little bit easier on the quarterback? So I think that's what you do. And same thing we tell the players, like, how do you get better each and every day? That's our job as coaches, to always try to grow, and that's some of what we used this offseason for. We went and visited places like Florida and Georgia and Clemson and talked to a bunch of different coaches, and it may be, hey, we do this drill a little bit different than we've done in the past. We do this meeting a little bit different than we've done in the past. So that's a lot of what it was. It's not any major changes, but it's those little things of, hey, we've done it this way, but is there a better way out there? And that's what we really started searching for as soon as that season ended.
Let's talk personnel-wise. We'll start at ground zero, and you were talking about this at the kickoff luncheon. You're fortunate to have a third-year quarterback back in Darren Granger. And how many pounds looks like he's put on 15 to 20 pounds. I mean, when you look at him up close, he's definitely bigger and stronger. I don't know if he's faster, because he was already pretty fast, but you've got a bigger, more physical quarterback, and I guess you really kind of need that, because he was our leading rusher last year. So as well as he threw the ball, and he threw for over 2,400 yards, he also had 6 rushing touchdowns and rushed for just under 800 yards.
Yeah, I think that's because in our offense, the quarterback's going to run the football. And so I think that was part of what we set out this offseason, is how can we put some weight on him. And credit to Mike Sirianni and what he did in the offseason program. He did a great job. And to your point, you look out there at practice, he hasn't lost any speed. If anything, he's probably a little bit faster, a little bit stronger. So Darren's commitment, but also what Mike did at this offseason with not only him but our entire team was really impressive.
Any other positions as you're out there that you see, like same with Darren, put on pounds, became bigger, stronger? Any other positions like that? Because I know you look back at the running game is going to look a little different this year. And Marcus Carroll, I look at him, and he's pretty chiseled.
Marcus for sure. I think it's all positions, though. I think, again, going back to a testament of what Mike did this offseason with our guys, he did a phenomenal job. I think all of them are bigger, faster, and stronger. You look at every position, and he had a detailed plan for what they were going to do and a process of how he was going to get them there. And there were certain weight gain guys. There were certain guys that we needed to get down a little bit, and he came in and attacked it and really did a good job. And then also I think he did a phenomenal job with the accountability and the mentality of what he did this offseason with this group.
All right, so the big question, and we'll move on from quarterback after this, you got to battle for backup. You got a young kid that you brought in from Memphis, Braylon Ragland, and McKnight Colacerto has been here, knows the offense as well as anybody.
Yeah, I think both those guys have competed throughout the summer and this camp. And I think McKnight, honestly, probably had his best week this past week playing the quarterback position for us. He's got a little bit of confidence. He's been in this system, and I think that's what you see. And I talked about it with both of them, with DG and with McKnight. Even for me, we've gone through 5 different installs of these plays, of how we teach it, why we teach it, and learning those things so they understand. They understand how I'm going to call plays. They understand the progressions of what we're looking for. So I think he definitely has a benefit there just from being in this offense for a long time. And it's been really fun to watch how he's progressed, especially this camp. And he had a good summer too. And then very excited about Braylon. He came in early, and I think that's a lot of young quarterbacks. He got thrown in the fire a little bit, and he's learning each and every day. And there's little things, and there's a lot that goes on because we put a lot on our quarterbacks. And there's a lot that he learns every single practice from the little things, from seeing this read a little bit different, from changing a protection. What's my hot on this throw? So he's one I'm very excited about. He loves the game. He's up here all the time studying it, and he'll keep progressing, and he's got a bright future ahead of him.
Well, there's obviously some new faces, or going to be some new faces along the offensive line, and the offensive line for the last however many years has been really playing well, top-notch, as evidenced by the numbers that Georgia State has put up with regards to running the football. Panther fans have gotten used to seeing Tucker Gregg, who he himself was a great story. We talked about that a lot the last couple of years. Jemias Williams, he was a great story on his journey to Georgia State. Marcus Carroll had a breakout game at Southern Miss last year, and now he's the number 1 on the depth chart in the running back room. But talk a little bit about KZ Adams, and you brought in another guy from Maine, Freddie Brock, Jay Dixon, Jalen Foster, maybe another player or 2 that's on your depth chart. But once again, we lose 2, but the depth is still pretty good at that spot.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're always doing in recruiting is you've got to make sure that you're ready for when those losses happen, right? And I think everybody in this building has said that Marcus Carroll has a very bright future ahead of him. So we're excited to see. We saw a little bit of it at Southern Miss last year and some other games where he had a chance to step up. But he's one that plays with an edge about himself. He's got a good energy. He's got a lot stronger this offseason too, so I'm really excited to see what he does this year. Then you look at KZ. He brings a little bit different dynamic back there, a little bit smaller, make you miss guy, able to hit some explosive plays. So same thing of what we said of having a chance to see him. You know, he's been here for now going into his next year, and he's going to have a chance to kind of show up a little bit. And I thought both of them had a really good day. And then we brought in Freddie, and Freddie's still learning. He's still picking up the offense, and that's part of the world we live in with transfers right now. But he's had a very good camp, and he'll just continue to get better. The more he understands what we're trying to do, the more he reps these plays, he's going to continue to get better and better.
Jay Dixon, Jalen Foster also in the running back room as well.
So both them, they've had a chance to get reps, and Jay's been here, another one who's been here for a while, and he's competing for that 3rd spot. And then Jalen's a young guy, and he's learning, and he's getting better, but I'm very excited about his future. So I think you look at it, you lose 2 guys, but that's a very good room that we're excited about with some depth that a lot of the fans will enjoy seeing what they do this year.
Well, Coach, the new world of college football that we're in now, it's roster building and restructuring every offseason, maybe more so than in years past with the way college athletics is now. Your number 1 receiver statistically is not here anymore. He's at Louisville. But one thing Georgia State, and anybody that's followed this program knows this, even going all the way back to year one with Albert Wilson, followed by Robert Davis and Penny Hart, just to throw out three of the great names. We've always had outstanding receivers, and Robert Lewis, Ja'Kias Cradle, Talik Williams, you brought in Jakari Carter, a lot of guys to throw to for Granger or whoever's throwing the football.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that group, and that's the nature of what college football is now, and that goes back to my point of what we have to do. We have to recruit and develop, and I think Coach Davis has done a great job in there, and I think we've got some guys from Robert Lewis, you got Talik Williams, you got Ja'Kias Cradle, and then some of those transfers that we brought in. I think as we stand today, that room is deeper than where we were this time last year, so goes back to what I was saying with Freddie, right? These guys that come in, right, everything's new. They got to learn, hey, what's this route? What am I doing? How am I adjusting to height? How am I adjusting to press coverage? What's my blocking rules on this? So as we get to this second half of camp, those guys are going to continue to get better and better, but athletically and their ability to make plays, very excited about that group and the depth that we have in that room. And then I think that first three group, you can put them up against any other in the Sun Belt right now.
Robert had the injury a year ago, and Robert Lewis, for him, he seems like he and Ja'Kias are, and maybe Jakari as well, but he's still new, ready to assume that mantle of the two go-to guys.
I think so. I think that between Rob and between Stretch, that those two can go up against anyone. And so we've always said, even from when we first got Ja'Kias Cradle, we said that he could be one of the top guys in this league. And you see him day by day kind of playing with a little bit more edge about himself, trying to be that number one guy. And he's got a great ability to take the top off of defenses and then improving in his route running. And I think he has a very, very high ceiling to be one. You named a lot of good receivers that have come through here. He can be one of those top ones. And then Robert's in the same mix. Like before Rob got hurt last year, he's one of the top receivers in the country in several different statistical categories. So we're very excited about what he can do. He's very explosive, got great speed. So I think both those guys make it a little bit easier for DG back there playing quarterback. And the other great thing is we say DG's in his third year. He's thrown a lot to those guys. So they've got a good connection, a good bond. They've thrown a lot of these routes over and over. So excited to see what they do.
All right, we'll touch on the tight ends. Couple of familiar names, Chris Bird, Amon Green, throw in Avian McBride and Dorian Fleming, and again, using that word depth. You got two guys that have been here, been an integral part, and then you got a couple of new, maybe less familiar faces.
Yes, I think the first two between Chris and Amon, again, a year ago, we're probably thinking Aubrey's going to take every snap that he can possibly take in a game when he comes back for his seventh year. And then it ended up they were thrown into the fire, and it was great for us now because they've got a lot of those banked repetitions that we've talked about in this offense. Same thing, they understand the different looks they got to block. They understand the protections. So they've made strides each and every day. They've shown some leadership, and they'll continue to get better. And then the two young guys between Avion and Dorian, we put a lot on our tight ends. In our offense is probably the quarterback, and then the most learning goes to the tight end room. And so there's a lot for them to learn, but I think Coach Ellington, Coach Banks, and then Rogers helped out a little bit, but they've really developed them and improved them. And, again, this second half of camp, I'm excited to see what they do.
All right, lastly, offensively, you guys averaged 30 points a game last year, which is nothing to shake a stick at. That's a pretty decent number. Of course, unfortunately, we allowed on average 31, which puts pressure on your guys to score even more. But you were very balanced, 213 on average running the football, again, primarily with Tucker and Jemias and a little bit with Marcus. And then with Darren Granger averaging about 203 yards, 204 yards passing. That's those numbers you're comfortable with.
you're always trying to get better. I think that's one of the things in coaching is that you're never satisfied. And so our job is to score more points than what the other team puts up. So we're searching for ways to increase those numbers and do whatever it takes to win, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what matters. Whatever the stats are, that's what the stats are. But we're trying to do what we can to put our team in position to go out there and win football games on Thursday nights or Saturdays in the fall.
All right, Coach, as always, appreciate it. Let's get off to a good start on the 31st here at the stadium against the Rams of Rhode Island, and appreciate you being on the podcast, as always, talking the offensive side of things here for the Panthers.
Thanks for having me, Dave, and I look forward to seeing all of our fans out there the 31st.
All right, that is Trent McKnight, offensive coordinator, second season in that role, but he's been here with Coach Elliott now for, since Coach Elliott got to Georgia State. So he's heading into his seventh season as well, and appreciate him taking the time to dive a little bit deeper on the offensive side of things here as we get ready for Georgia State to kick off their 14th season. Coming up on the other side of this timeout, we will talk defense with the new defensive coordinator, Chad Staggs. That comes up after this timeout, following these words from Ford and Center Park Credit Union.
Even before the victory celebration is over, great teams are back at it the next day, working to get even better. The team at Ford understands how hard work and dedication pay off. Over the last 30 years, Ford Explorer has been America's best-selling SUV. In fact, all Ford SUVs, like Explorer, Escape, and Edge, are built for victory. Score a great offer today at your local Ford dealer. Based on total cumulative OEM reported U.S. sales for all SUVs from calendar year 1990 through calendar year 2019.
Center Park Credit Union, the official financial sponsor of GSU football, is proud to be a part of the Georgia State community and the Panther athletics program. Center Park provides members convenient financial services. In addition to online banking, mobile banking, and 7 Metro Atlanta branches, Center Park members have access to 5,000 co-op shared branches and 75,000 surcharge-free ATMs nationwide. To find a location near you, visit online at centerpark.org/contact, and that's park with a C. Not a member? Join today at centerpark.org. At Center Park, we help our members flourish. Back here on the Panther Insider podcast, driven by Ford. We've talked offense with Trent McKnight. We turn the microphones over to the defensive side of the football right now as we're joined by one of the new faces on Coach Elliott's staff. He's been here now for a while, so not quite as new, but this will be his first season leading the defense here for the Panthers, and that's Chad Staggs. Coach, welcome to Georgia State. Welcome to the Panther Insider podcast driven by Ford. Again, I know you've been here for a little while, but this is our first time having you on the podcast. Great to have you.
Thanks for having us. It's been a joy. It's been a great start. We're still a lot of work to do, but it's been a really fun camp. The guys are really getting after it.
So let's talk a little bit about your arrival here at Georgia State. You were at, and this is the new world of college football that we live in. It's really not just players, but coaches as well. You spent the previous 4 years at a fellow Sun Belt school. You were over in lovely Conway, South Carolina, not far from Myrtle Beach, and you spent the last 4 years there. And, of course, their situation changed, which affected you, and here you are in Atlanta, but the Panthers are happy to have you.
Yeah, it was real stressful month or two there for a little while. I ended up got an opportunity to go to Western Kentucky with Coach Helton, which was awesome when you're kind of looking for a job. And then I got a call from Coach Elliott, and it was a no-brainer, and got down here and was able to go for my 15th season as defensive coordinator. And I had an opportunity to be in the conference for the last 4 years. We've had some success there, or I've had some success there, so I do know the conference. Now the conference has changed drastically in the last year. It's a very tough conference, and I would go as far as say it's the toughest G5 conference in the country. And so I know the challenges ahead of us. I know the physicality in which we got to approach the game. So that's what we're working on now to make sure our guys are prepared for it.
Yeah, you could drill down one more level and say it's the toughest G5 division on the eastern side in college football.
100%. I'd say it's probably like the SEC West of college football. I mean, there's no good, easy games. There's no games that you're like, okay, we got a little of a relief here. I mean, every game, anybody can beat anybody. I mean, the parity in the conference is just unreal. It's going to come down to the details. It's going to come down to the strain to get to the ball and the effort, defensively, I feel like. So we've been really harping on it. We've been very physical so far in camp. And that's part of Coach Elliott. Being able to play, be a defensive coordinator and play off of his energy and his physicality makes my job a little bit easier in the grand scheme of things. And so that's actually been a big plus for us. I think I would hope maybe the guys will look around and say it's probably been a more physical group than maybe they were. That's what I'm hoping. So we'll see how it turns out on game day, but it's going to be a tough conference and a lot of physicality.
Delve a little bit into your relationship with head coach Sean Elliott and how far back that goes. In coaching, as you know, paths cross all the time, and you never know when that relationship is going to come back to center stage, as it did for you, as you just mentioned, last year that brought you here to Atlanta.
It's really kind of a funny story. I mean, we really didn't cross paths. I was at South Carolina as a GA, but I had left before he had gotten there. I'd actually I was trying to get on when he took the head job here, and he talked to me a little bit, but I think he was going after Nate first, and Nate took the job, and I got a connection with Woody, and that's kind of how that all went. So, and then full circle comes back around. I'm at Furman, then go to Coastal, and so forth, but we go against each other. And I think from my standpoint, I would text him after games, congratulate him or whatever when we went against each other. I think both of us are very competitive and have a lot of fire to us. I think so there was a lot of mutual respect. I just remember a story. We were fortunate to come in, and we just had a day in 2020 here that was everything went right for us and really everything went wrong for them. It was just one of those games you just got to get rid of if you're on the other side. And after the game, I went to tell him, give him respect after the game. And he told me, "You're just a hemorrhoid in me." And so that was pretty funny. But I think that's what you saw. And then they came in 21 and got the best of me, right? So I think you just saw that. I think that's what he saw on video as he watched us, what kind of how I try to approach defense. And then so I think when he called me, I think that's how it kind of happened.
Yeah, because philosophies have to blend. They've got to mesh, in the overall, when you're talking about schemes in college football, obviously, there's got to be that relationship there, which, as you were just explaining, was there. But from a scheme standpoint and a fit standpoint, that's got to be there as well. And I'm sure that comes out when you guys are sitting there talking in the so-called quote-unquote interview process.
Yeah, I mean, really, we didn't talk a whole lot about scheme or anything. It was really, like you said, it was fit, and I kind of gave him my vision of the things I would want to change. And he's really very hands-off defensively. He'll look at some things and not like it, or he'll tell you some things that hurts offenses. And people, I don't think they realize they know him as an O-line coach, but he was a D-lineman in college. So he has a lot of love still for the defense. He comes over and we worked one-on-one. Pass rush was maybe a DB on a blitz. He was teaching them and made the O-line kind of try to block them, so it worked both. But he's coaching up the defensive guy as well. And I think that it makes my job a little easier when you got a head coach that sees that in the middle and is working with both sides from his standpoint. He's still the head coach. If I have a certain thing I'm trying to do and he doesn't think it works or doesn't like it, then that's what I do. You know what I mean? I think that's the same thing as my coaches. If I don't like a technique, that's what they do. I think that's the chain of command. And so when he says he doesn't like something, or we want it coached this way, that's the way we do it. And so it's been really a great relationship. We do seem to fit together in terms of our philosophies and the way we approach things. And it's been really a joyful experience for me because when you transition your family like we did, and I got a kid in high school and kid in middle school, that's always tough. I mean, that take football aside. The fans just see the game. They miss sometimes what affects the families. And it's been a really good transition. My kids are enjoying it. Wife's enjoying it. And Coach Elliott's been awesome with all that. So I think that's part of the fit too.
Again, with Chad Staggs, defensive coordinator here in the Panther Insider podcast. Yeah, Conway, South Carolina, or there and abouts is not Atlanta, Georgia. There is a little bit of a transition that goes on there.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. We enjoyed living there, actually. We had a great setup there, had kind of gotten roots in 4 years with some really good friends because of COVID, and you're in your house a lot more. And so that was tough on the family. It was tough on the wife, to be honest with you. She had made a lot of friends outside the football family. And so coming here, and she doesn't have that. Our best friends, our daughter's godparents, do live here, so that's made that transition a little bit easier. But it's been a big move, big city, but we're enjoying it. And, I mean, we went out to eat the other night. She said, you know what, we can try 60 new places and never go to the same one in 6 years. So that is part of what enjoying Atlanta.
Well, let's talk real quick because we don't want to focus too much on Coastal Carolina, but kudos to you guys. I mean, Coastal Carolina became one of the, we'll call, dominant faces of Sun Belt football the last 3-4 seasons. And that's not just because of who the quarterback was, because obviously you're scoring points, but the defense played a big part of that.
Yeah, I mean, we had a little drop last year. We lost a lot of guys COVID, but we didn't play our best last year. But defensively, we were really pretty good in 2021. He had a good quarterback, and I've really talked to these guys a little bit about the transition from 19 to 20. What was it? And you had new strengths coach come in. You had new philosophy come in with that. They probably strained and worked harder, like coaches talked about several times. They were in uncomfortable situations. And then it goes into the players or the detail of which they approach the game, physically tough, but also mentally tough. And I've really talked about it to give them that belief it can happen. But here are the steps that I saw work to happen. And don't get it twisted. That September 21st has been circled on my calendar for a while myself.
So an interesting scenario here. You get the Georgia State job, and I guess you can ask this one time. What was your perception of Georgia State defensively when you were on the other sideline?
There were a lot of similarities because, like I said, the 3-down slant angle, the different ways you approached it, we had some similarities probably in a 25 to maybe 35% of the defense we ran. I was probably just a little bit more aggressive with the way I approached it. Nate had his way of doing it. I had my way. We just become a little more multiple than he was. So that was probably some similarities, and there'll be some carryover, but we will be more aggressive trying to get havoc in the backfield than maybe he was. So these guys had to learn how to blitz a little bit better and some stuff when the first got here because they hadn't done it. And there's nothing right or wrong with either coordinator. It's just the way you're going to approach it. I thought watching them, we always had crossover games. I would always watch them because I knew there was some similarities and I could get some pointers on. To the point where we had friends on each staff that if we would communicate, hey, why did y'all do this? Or they would go, why were y'all doing this? And so there was a lot of carryover, but this is going to be a new year. We've changed some things in the defense, and we're going to see what happens on that first game in Rhode Island.
Georgia State, Rhode Island, August 31, a Thursday night here at Center Park Credit Union Stadium. Quick scouting report on personnel, and I know we don't want to go too deep. As far as what you got up front, what you got in the middle, and coming from the outside, and then of course, your safeties and corners. The new world of college football. We lost what we'll call some impact players on the defensive side of the football, but at the same time, we have brought in some impact players on the defensive side of the football. Just again, I know you can't go too deep, but kind of glossing over where we are, personnel wise, heading into the 14th season of Georgia State football.
Really what I'll start just up front, it's a little bit of work in progress. We've had some dings and not major injuries up there, so we've had to shuffle some guys around. We did bring in a couple guys. Henry was here for spring ball. He's really done a good job. Tyline's obviously been here. Dennis has been here. We got to develop some depth. We can't have guys out there D-line playing, 80 plays. So that's been a thing that's been a project that I know Coach Smith is working really hard on. Coach Elliott's working hard on. I'm working hard on. But that takes a little bit of time. We tried in the portal to replace what had left, but it is what it is. Sometimes you can get them, sometimes you can't. Then we move back to the linebacker room. The inside linebackers, we've moved John Trey into the inside, and he's really showed out. I think that's going to be a good move for him. He'd put on a lot of weight, and he can be a really, really special player. He can do things as a Sunday kind of player. So I'm really looking forward to see what he can do. I don't think we'll see Blake this year, obviously. But then, JoJo's a young linebacker that's had some good plays in camp. We brought in a guy from Coastal in the portal, and Josiah Robinson. I've coached his brother, so I've known the family for a long time. He's had some plays. I mean, Coach Elliott's even raved about him. So we got some depth there. It's going to be how we can get our best guys on the field. And, obviously still got Vinzi and Ham, the guys that's been here. The outside linebacker, jack position, used to call dogs here. The jack position, when I got here, I wasn't sure about. Coach Elliott wasn't sure about, but about 12 days in camp, it's been one of our stronger groups now. I got a GA, Elijah Shaw, is helping me with that group, and he is awesome. He's top notch. You got Alan Smith, so it's a lot of crossover with D-line, and they've been really playing well. So I'm looking forward to see what they can do. And then the back end, we did lose D-Hop early. We'll see how long he's out. But you got some guys back. You got Keese back. He's been a staple back there. But really we're very young in the back end. I don't think we lose one, possibly, right? Maybe Keese. And so we're really young back there. So I know there's going to be some growing pains, unfortunately. We're trying our best to lock everything in. And then we got a guy in the portal of Gavin Pringle, and he's been playing well. He's had some days where he's giving up some balls, but he's been playing well. So I know the secondary's young. We're going to have to protect them some, but sometimes protect them is not just playing coverage. Sometimes you got to heat the quarterbacks up to give them less time. I think it's give or take there. But we got to continue to improve, techniques everywhere. So that's pretty much the overview. I'm excited about the physicality and the work that they're bringing every day.
Kevin Swint transfers in from Clemson a couple years ago. Shamar McCullum comes in from Wake. You got Ronald Cooper, Cody Jones. When you talk about sending disruptors into the backfield, I mean, those are four pretty good players, four pretty good names.
Yeah, like you said, you named off Shamar and Kevin, and even Chris has had a good camp. I mean, he's really come light years. I mean, he's stuck out a few times. So we're 3 deep of some big, strong, physical jacks that can create havoc one-on-ones and win. They're athletic enough to drop in some coverages and do some stuff. And you got, I guess we call him Buck. I mean, I guess I don't even realize everybody called him that. But you got Buck, and Cody's really come along, transfer from UMass. So they're learning a lot in terms of getting on edges when they do come in pressures and stuff like that. The safeties will come on pressures. The corners going to come. Everyone back there is going to come in pressures. That's the big change, and that's what we've really had to work through to get them to understand at which to do that. And so we got some disruptors, and we got some disruptors up front. Now we just got to make sure we're all 11 where we're supposed to be. That's been a challenging camp. When we're all where we're supposed to be, we're pretty good. We're making offense execute, and it's been tough on them. And we'll bust something, and we'll bust an 80-yard run because somebody's out of gap or something. And so we're really working at that. We got a few weeks before we play, so we'll dial down what we have in for a game plan. But you have to put a lot in to get concepts and stuff in, and then the game plans are way smaller than what you practice. And so that's what we're planning on doing starting about tomorrow, the next day, is really start to work on game plan stuff.
Well, Coach, good talking defense with you. Great having you here at Georgia State. And I know after a while, fall camp gets, we'll call it old. It's hot out here, obviously, at Center Park Stadium. And everybody gets to that point where they're ready to go ahead, get the season started. The talking is done, as Coach Elliott says, and it's time to lace them up and hit somebody else who's not one of your teammates.
There's no doubt. It happens every year, every camp. The first thing to allow the players' mouth to interview them is, I'm ready to hit someone else. And they're excited about it, and I'm excited to be here. So thanks for having me.
All right, want to thank defensive coordinator Chad Staggs, again, first year on the staff here with Coach Elliott at Georgia State. Want to thank him for joining us. And thanks, of course, to Trent McKnight, the offensive coordinator who joined us in the opening segment. Want to thank both of them for joining us on the Panther Insider podcast. As always, a reminder to fans, please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you download your podcast from. We're back again soon with another special guest or guests on the Panther Insider podcast driven by Ford. This is Dave Cohen saying thanks for listening. We'll see you at Center Park Credit Union Stadium. And as always, go Panthers!